Otto Hightower has been captured, and we don't really know who did it. This was revealed to us at the end of the season 2 finale of House of the Dragon when we got a brief glimpse of Otto in a cage somewhere. Today we're going to go through the possible options for who could have taken him prisoner and how it could affect the story going forward. We're going to look at the three main options from both the perspective of in-world means, motive, and opportunity, as well as the writing perspective, like how does it affect the entire story. And I think at the end there's a pretty clear favorite for just who has Otto in a cage. But first, let's take a look at just how he got there so that we're taking a look at all of the evidence in context. So, obviously, at the end of last season, Otto does his entire coup that puts his grandson on the throne, and then Otto is serving as the hand of the king to his grandson. Through a series of events where Aegon sees his council and specifically his grandfather as undermining him in different ways, as well as through a little bit of manipulation by Larys Strong, along with some highly charged emotional moments as basically a direct result of Otto's coup that he went through with, all culminating in a scene where Otto just screams at his grandson about being basically an idiot. Aegon decides to fire Otto Hightower and send him back to Oldtown. So the last we see of Otto for quite a while, he is headed back to Oldtown. And then in episode 6 of season 2, we hear that Alicent has received no word from Otto Hightower even though she's been sending letters. Which I thought was strange, because Alicent told me it was strange. So ever since then I've been wondering just where was Otto Hightower. And then of course right at the end of the season we find out, yep, he is in a cage somewhere. So now that we're all caught up, there are a few obvious candidates for people who may want to kidnap Otto Hightower, who may also have the ability to do so. The first one that I want to cover is Missaria. She's one of the obvious options. She's the spy master for the opposing faction in a war. She has plenty of motive to try and capture Otto Hightower if she would be able to. We know that she has a lot of agents all over King's Landing at the very least, and you assume that extends somewhat out into the rest of Westeros. Surely there's a chance that one of her agents could have been, aware of Otto Hightower's movement as he left King's Landing, and they could have used that to capture him. So Missaria has plenty of reason to want to try and capture Otto Hightower because of obviously the war going on, as well as her own personal issues with Otto from season 1, so that makes her one of the most obvious candidates for who could have potentially kidnapped Otto Hightower. So while I do think it's definitely possible that it is Massaria, I think it's unlikely for a few writing reasons. Basically, I think if Massaria were behind this, we would have been shown more information about it. Rhaenyra was getting a bunch of wins one after the other right there at the end of the season. If they had had such a big win as having their side having captured Otto Hightower, they would have probably revealed that to us fully. We were also right alongside Massaria and Rhaenyra plotting a bunch of things throughout the season. We saw their plot at least hinted at when they were sending food into King's Landing, which is much smaller of a plot than actually capturing Otto Hightower. It would be a little bit weird for us to have been shown that plot in detail, but then be completely surprised in this way when they plot to capture Otto in some fashion. So I just think for a number of storytelling reasons with the way that this information has been presented to us, that it's probably not Team Black or Massaria that has captured Otto. The only way that it possibly could be is if it's like someone who works for her lower down the chain, who has Otto in chains right now, and like hasn't informed yet, like up the chain that he's captured Otto. Like maybe Otto's being transported to some city where eventually it'll be revealed and like then Massaria could be informed. But that's the only way I could see it working out to being Massaria's agents who have captured Otto. So, okay, if I'm putting Massaria as plausible but the third most likely candidate, who is the second most likely candidate? Well, of course, you have the opposite team's spy master. We already talked about how Larys Strong was undermining Otto's authority with Aegon in little subtle ways throughout the season, and so wouldn't be that much of a big leap forward to suspect that if he had the opportunity, Larys may actually go on and fully capture Otto, just completely taking him out of the picture. Especially after Larys is the one that Aemond tasked with finding Otto Hightower. If he actually went and found Otto but just captured him instead, would that be that out of line for Larys? Personally, I don't think so. This seems like exactly something that he would do, so I think he's definitely very, very high on the suspect list of people who may have captured Otto. We know he has a network of spies who are loyal to him who would be intertwined with the Hightowers at this point very well, and he would definitely have knowledge of Otto's movements, and he would probably even have people who would be trusted by Otto who are actually working for him. So, of all the people who have an ability to capture Otto, he's probably very high on the list. I also think that between him and Massaria, it's much more interesting for the story if Otto has been captured by Laris. It would feel pretty overpowered for Team Black to just have Otto Hightower suddenly in chains and we just didn't see it on screen, right? Like him being captured by Laris could be something that could be off screen and it wouldn't feel cheap. If he's been captured by the opposite side in the war, it feels like that's something we should have actually seen happen. That would just be such a major development in the actual, like, standing of the war itself that it feels like it needs to be on screen. Whereas him being captured by Laris is like a subtle little backstab that if they reveal at the beginning of season 3, that would make more sense. So, as I said, I have Laris as like the second most likely option, higher than Massaria, but they are definitely 2 and 3 on my list. They are the spy masters, they have the spy networks, they have the people who would be able to capture Otto, and both of them seemingly have a bit of motive to try and do so. But of course, if they are 2 and 3 on the list, that means there is a more likely candidate to have Otto in that cage. And I think that most likely candidate is probably one of the Reach houses who is loyal to Rhaenyra. There are a bunch of houses whose lands Otto would have to pass through on the way from King's Landing to Old Town, and many of them are probably not actually as loyal to Team Green as he would like to think. The Reach as a whole may stand with House Hightower and with the Greens, but as we saw with the Blackwoods and the Brackens and just the Riverlands houses in general, it's not always that simple. There are several Reach houses who don't really approve of Otto's coup, and very specifically one has been set up by the show to be the most disapproving of the coup, who I think is probably the most likely to have actually gone out and captured Otto. That would be, of course, House Beesbury. Lyman Beesbury lost his life in Otto's coup for trying to stand up for Rhaenyra. And when you take a look at the map, House Beesbury is in a perfect position to go out and intercept Otto at some point before he gets back to Old Town. They may not have shown it on screen, but you can almost imagine it now. Otto just running around swatting at the air as he's swarmed by a bunch of angry bees who capture him and shove him into a big wooden cage. But on a real level, if you look around at discussion about who captured Otto, this is one of the top answers basically everywhere you look, and that's for a good reason. It feels like the most well set up by the show, and it would pay off everything that happened with Lord Beesbury in season 1. House Beesbury hasn't been an on screen player in season 2, so it would make sense that Otto's capture would have happened off screen and then they can be introduced as a player in season 3. Whereas Laris and Massaria are active on screen players, and if they were going to do something so significant, we probably should have seen it, as I mentioned earlier. I also did see a good point raised a few different places when they were talking about Otto being captured. If he's captured by House Beesbury or some other house in the Reach, well, then we have a situation set up where they've both teased Otto being captured, and they've also teased this army that is mustered in the Reach that's marching around with Daron out there with his dragon. This would be a perfect introduction opportunity for a new character who rides a dragon, as well as a new army which may have some other named characters leading it who we might need to get to know. If they all need to go and rescue Otto Hightower, that gives some pretty high stakes to everything that they're doing for all these new characters. Someone who viewers really enjoy watching on the screen would have their life on the line in this battle if this is indeed where Otto has been captured. So as far as I know, this doesn't happen in the books. We are in like completely speculation worthy territory here. I think that if you just look at all of these different options that we've laid out here for who possibly could have captured Otto, there's a number of reasons that it works the best for the story to have him have been captured by some Reach household. Once you accept that, then the Beesburys make the most sense. It's going to be really interesting to see if Otto is rescued right away, or if he's imprisoned for a little while. We have a history of characters who are imprisoned in Game of Thrones leaving prison much worse off. So, could something bad happen to Otto Hightower while he's in prison that leaves him worse off for the rest of the show? Potentially, I don't know. I think we are in pretty much uncharted territory here, at least as far as I'm aware. What do you think? Will we get Lyman Beesbury's revenge with his family doing something to Otto while he's in prison? Do you even think that it's his family who has Otto in prison? Or do you think that it's somebody else? Definitely let me know all of your thoughts on that down in the comments. I'm interested to see what the people are thinking. Overall, at this point, I think I agree with the people who are saying it's most likely the beesberries that have auto captive, but let me know if you have a better option. Make sure to like and subscribe while you're down there, it really helps the channel, and I'll be back with something else very soon.